Welcome to How to Disaster. We are very pleased today to bring you a double episode. There are two leaders from the LA fires, specifically the Eaton Fire. Both have to do around the issue of decision trees when you are rebuilding. The first guest is from the Foothill Catalog Foundation. He's the co-founder with his wife, Cynthia. Alex Athenson is with us today. And then we move on to Chris Corbett. Chris Corbett is part of the Altadena Collective. Both are architects and both are really contributing to their community's rebuild in ways that are innovative, they are compassionate, they are competent, they are creative, and they hold survivors and their experiences at the center of it, and they make the entire process better and easier in a way that will also scale to other fires. I hope you enjoy this episode, and thank you once again for being with us on How to Disaster. Alex, welcome to How to Disaster. I'm so happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer, for having me. Happy to be here.
So I had the privilege of meeting you early on in the fire recovery space in the Los Angeles fires, specifically the Eaton fire, though I know you're working across both now. And one of the things that we really love is innovations and iterations of innovations. And anytime they get better or are reimagined, especially to serve the community in front of you, it's something that we want to lean into. You and your wife have done such a beautiful job of bringing this housing plan library into a brand new stratosphere. So can you talk about your fire journey and what led you to start the Foothill Catalog Foundation?
Yeah, happy to. It's been such a pleasure meeting you personally, and then meeting the whole After the Fire team, meeting this whole ecosystem of recovery, this recovery network that I had no idea existed when the Eaton Fire broke out in our community. So, yeah, my wife and I, Cynthia, we're both architects. We met in architecture school at the University of Notre Dame. We've been out here in Pasadena for the past 6 years. And, the night of January 7th, we were two architects just working and living in, in Pasadena, kind of doing different day jobs. We were evacuated from our home, basically when we got home that evening, and we're looking out our kitchen window and saw the San Gabriel Mountains fully engulfed in flame. So not being, we've been in California for a while, but not being native Californians, this was kind of the first time we had gone through this, and we didn't know exactly what the protocol was, but it was like, well, we can't sleep here tonight. The mountains are on fire. So we left not knowing really what to think of it. I mean, the winds that day I had never seen any winds ever like that in my life before. But the next morning we woke up on a friend's air mattress, in the valley, and had seen the fire leap across all of Altadena, already destroying thousands and thousands of structures. And to the point where at 10:30 in the morning, the fire was within a block of our front door, and we were watching this on the news. We were seeing a reporter standing on our street with homes burning behind her. So, yeah, we turned off the TV because we were with the pace of how quickly that fire had spread and the winds that were still like the Category 2 force hurricane winds. We were pretty resolute that our home was not going to survive, and our block in our neighborhood was not going to be there. So we were in that mindset for a few hours until one of our friends who was driving around, kind of checking on properties, sent us this apocalyptic picture of our home with smoke and ash surrounding it, but it's still standing around 1:30. So that at that moment we realized that our home was still there, and we learned eventually the winds shifted at just the right moment, and our block, our kind of immediate neighborhood was spared, from full destruction. But right across the street, and then in our entire community throughout Altadena, our friends, our neighbors, we were learning, had everything they owned, everything they knew was just completely gone. So, as architects, who working and living in Los Angeles and knowing how in Los Angeles in 2025, 2026, how difficult it is to literally build anything. Like any project is just the most difficult, arduous, expensive, time-consuming process. It's kind of the state of the industry here. And now looking at what our neighborhood looks
Alex, can
like.
I interrupt you for one
Yeah,
second and
yeah,
just say
go
that
ahead.
when people say to me, like, it's better than it was, so maybe that's the best we can hope for in Los Angeles, I'm like, but think of what it was before. Like, no, it can actually be 1/12. It can be 1 month at most from beginning to end, not 12 to 24 months. So, side note,
Yeah,
I just,
no,
yeah,
the expectations and just the way that the process is built up. I've had so crazy stories working on other like big projects that just permitting delays and system process it just doesn't work. And for our community, for all these families that now needed to access this problem, needed or this process in order to stay in their hometown, like that was they were not set up for it. That process was not set up for these families. So as architects, but more importantly as members of the Altadena, Pasadena community, Cynthia and I wanted to figure out a way to make that process accessible, attainable, affordable, but also provide a high standard of quality from resiliency, from sustainability, and then really from just cultural identity and to retain this place, which is so special. And that every community that people have stayed here for decades and generations because of the love they have for this place. So yeah, that led us to start the Foothill Catalog Foundation. We incorporated our kind of recklessly, but like a week later, incorporated a nonprofit with
I
the
don't know.
mission. Yeah, I mean, it's like it happens, but our goal is was to then use this mechanism of catalog homes, of standard plan designs, uh, that we could pre-approve through our kind of local jurisdictions to kind of bypass all of this red tape and all of this process.
And
And then
expense.
and yeah, it's time, expense, and it's just burden, right? Just weight on people's shoulders when this weight of navigation of unpredictability, taking all that off people's shoulders so they can not only afford to go through the process and afford to rebuild, but then also like be able to make it through, right? Just emotionally and as people. So that was kind of what we launched with, using the Sears catalog as our model that instantly kind of clicks for people.
For some people, they're not going to know who are listeners what the Sears catalog is. I mean, I'm a super fan, but can you talk about what that was and what it maybe could be again?
Yeah, it's so 100 years ago or over 100 years ago, Sears Roebuck was probably the largest kind of retail corporation in the country. They published this incredibly thick magazine, this catalog they shipped all over the country, selling. It was kind of like Amazon in a book, like it is now. They were selling tools, they were selling live animals, they were selling like clothing, and they were selling building materials like pre 1908. And then in 1908, they like the building materials were not selling very well. So they were like, okay, what if we just put these all together in kits and then sold essentially homes, like architectural plans and materials, uh, in out of this catalog. It's a section of the catalog, Sears Modern Homes, and that program was incredibly successful in 1908, and they ran for about 30 years, right up until World War II. But it kind of spurred all these other initiatives of catalog home models, where essentially it was like one of our nation's most successful models for accessing quality, affordable housing, and making that accessible for families all across the country, to just
And
literally open the
beautiful,
magazine.
beautiful too.
I
To
mean,
be
I mean,
clear, a Foursquare. I mean, beautiful homes. Sorry, it's very
yeah, no,
important.
no. I mean, Google Sears catalog, whatever, 1908 or 1912 edition. Like, you'll find like incredible homes, and you'll probably recognize a few of them too. Like, oh, I've seen those. Another like an iteration of the catalog model was Pacific Ray cut homes. That was like more Southern California specific. Google Pacific Ready Cut. I'm sure Southern Californians will recognize half of those homes. Like, yeah, I've seen those in my neighborhood. So yeah, it was an incredibly effective way of making quality, affordable, beautiful housing attainable to normal families across the country. And so that same now struggle is even more apparent in this much more complex building environment, but also this really complex disaster recovery environment. So that's kind of where, this catalog approach in this 21st century, more intelligent, kind of more, more complex, but, the same spirit could ultimately provide value to survivors across our community and beyond.
And that's one of the things that we love about anything that's scalable. I mean, they have a program in Paradise that was specific to Paradise. They've rebuilt homes that way since 2019. But one of the things that I love is the concept of always serving the community in front of you. But also, I think that just because you're being given something like a housing plan doesn't mean that it can't and shouldn't be very beautiful, especially because of the work you're doing with Habitat for Humanity. So, can you talk about the design decisions that you have made around what these look like, and I think it's one of the real reasons of your popularity. It is your hard work. It's definitely your hard work, but it's also the aesthetics of it. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that had always been, I mean, as architects living in Pasadena and Altadena, Cynthia and I really have a passion for regional place-based architecture. So design that represents the place and the people that call that place home. And that's where that's what makes every community special and different and unique, is the people, and then the built environment, the buildings that represent their individuality, their uniqueness as well. So in Altadena and the Palisades, in the Palisades and Pasadena, all over Southern California, there's this really rich architectural history, and that even like you're not trained at all in architecture, like you kind of know what an Altadena home looks like, what a Spanish Mission Revival home will look like on your street. And so for us, we kind of had that leg up as living on a street, literally, with all those homes in front of us. But then also as architects who kind of have studied this and are trained in actually how to be able to replicate it. And then also kind of overcome this kind of misconception that beautiful quality or traditional architecture can't also be affordable. Like that, oh, that was something that people did 100 years ago, but can't do that anymore. It's just too expensive. So, and then also, it can't be resilient. It can't be fire hardened. It can't be sustainable too. Like, so the goal of our organization is to kind of thread that needle and to really address all of these priorities, right? It has to be affordable. It has to be resilient, but it really, survivors deserve for their homes and their communities to be beautiful as well as they were before. So, and if you look at all these go to Sears catalog, go to Pacific Ready Cut, you'll see these homes were elegant and beautiful, but they were pretty simple. I think that's what, that's kind of the spirit of that program and kind of what we're trying to replicate. And yeah, to your point, I mean, it is a lot of hard work, but I think that stands for itself, right? Of like, it clicks for people who like couldn't tell you the difference between an entablature and a dental, right? But people just see an image and they're like, yeah, that is Altadena. Like that is my hometown.
One of the things I really like about it too is when we first landed on the ground in Altadena, maybe 4 weeks post disaster, and one of the first things we heard from the community on the ground, which is everyone from the Altadena Council to Courage, who's a community guy, and to an architect who was there, to all of them said the same things. They were very proud of the history of the Black community in Altadena, which was very important. And so they wanted to make sure they could keep that forever and maybe even expand upon it. But they also wanted bespoke homes. And what we said to them at the time was, we're really sorry, but in order, you can either rebuild back in a way that's affordable and can get you home. But if you do, 12,000 or with 9,000, the numbers are always confusing on this particular fire. Custom, that's a 20 to 25 year recovery. But you have found a way to actually sort of meld the desires of the community in with how you can actually rebuild back in a way that does meet the financial demands and the desired timeline. Kudos. It's a pretty big deal.
It's like, it kind of just became apparent to us how many kind of blanks or how many efficiencies this provides. And I think it speaks to all of our other partners who kind of see that too, from, Habitat for Humanity and other kind of nonprofit partners. to LA County, like our permitting officials who see this too, is like, oh, this actually can make our job much easier as well. So, yeah, it's been about kind of creating that solution, but then really making those relationships and connections with other stakeholders, and then also with the community we're trying to serve, right? So, I mean, our number one goal is to retain the people and that diverse population of what makes Altadena so special. It's a historic Black community. It's just these historic minorities, these uh, pocket neighborhoods that have their own identity. So, yeah, again, trying to balance all of those priorities and then really speak to what matters to every individual stakeholder.
And I love keeping the heart of it at the focus of it, which for us always means like starting with the survivors and what they need first, and then reverse engineering back. Like, how do you get to yes? One of the things that you're doing is a really cool partnership with San Gabriel Valley Habitat for Humanity. We think they're an excellent habitat chapter. Can you talk about that work and what you all are doing in Altadena? Because I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, happy to talk about how incredible San Gabriel Valley Habitat is. They've been around. I mean, Habitat has this brand name internationally recognized, but they work in all these different chapters and they function pretty differly, like depending on what
They
chapter
do.
you go to. So, um, our local San Gabriel Valley Habitat for Humanity, they have been here for the last 40 years, kind of doing work in the community. And when the fires happened, they were also kind of figuring out, okay, this is our community. A lot of their staff lives and works in these neighborhoods in Altadena. And so they were trying to figure out how to respond. And honestly, they were one of the first people I talked to, almost sort of in happenstance. I kind of ended up in their office at sort of like a pre-planned open house event. But talking with some of their leadership team about kind of this idea that I had as an architect, and we had launched already, and we're developing. Before the end of January, even this was 2 weeks after the fire. Me and my wife Cynthia were in their offices talking about, okay, how would this work? Kind of melding this catalog home approach to rebuilding with Habitat's capacity and their kind of community knowledge and nonprofit building resources. Um, so they were so forward thinking and so passionate about trying to figure out solutions for the community as well. So, I mean, we were a perfect match to just sort of hit the gas pedal to the floor and start building out what eventually became this really robust reconstruction program that they launched in tandem with our work with LA County to actually launch a
Mhm.
pre-approval mechanism to actually make catalog plans actually exist because that did not exist before April
Mhm.
2025. So all these things were able to happen so quickly because of just the passion of all these local stakeholders. And then by June, we were standing on the lot of our first family that we were rebuilding for with our first pre-approved plan in LA County history, with Brian and the Habitat SGV team, with Supervisor Catherine Barger, and then with the Wood family, which is the first family we rebuilt for together, and the first family we moved back home about a month and a half ago at the end of March.
Which was also, it was great. So many people came through. The governor came through. There's been a lot of interest and a lot of attention, but for all the right reasons. Often we see after a fire, we see a lot of attention on everything going wrong. And unfortunately, I love LA, but you all have a tendency to focus on wrong. This is wrong, everything that's wrong. And I'm like, but do you understand? Like, you have more talent per square inch than any other place I've ever worked by
Oh my
far.
gosh. Yeah,
It's
it's incredible.
it's incredible, and this is something to celebrate. But you're also, I want to make sure people know that you're also giving away. These homes are being given away though, to given to families, especially older families who were from Altadena. Um,
Right. Yeah.
that's
So the benefit of
huge.
of working with Habitat is then being able to provide gap funding, gap financing to actually make rebuilding possible for, yeah, exactly, all of these families who are on fixed incomes or underinsured or uninsured, who have been in this community for 40, 50 years. So, on our side, on the architecture, on the process side,
Mhm.
we're able to really essentially eliminate custom design, custom permitting, cost, timelines, process, and then make those builds so much more predictable to enable our partners to scale. But then Habitat being able to kind of corral funders and create this this story and this narrative around what is possible to be able to then provide funding and the support to actually make the construction possible as well. So that families, I mean, they feel like they win the lottery when they're working with Habitat. So it's been an incredible initiative. And we also similarly are like gas pedal is still to the floor. We're still trying to
Yeah.
figure out how we can help even more families and make this process expand to its greatest capacity.
So, say you're a fire survivor and you're from the Altadena community. I know that you're moving into the Palisades too, and you want one of these, but you're afraid you're not going to hit the income limit because so many things in disaster are needs tested, which I think there's too many things that are needs tested, by the way. I think if you have a need or if you're a fire survivor, you should have access to things. Um, Tell us about what that process looks like. What's the client journey when they decide to use the Foothill catalog?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to help all fire survivors and make this resource available to everyone who is affected, regardless of means, regardless of backgrounds, of ethnicity, of resources. I mean, as after the fire, as you know so well, there's so many gaps that need to be filled, and they're not all financial gaps. There's time gaps, there's process gaps, there's emotional gaps. Everyone has just gone through without a doubt, the most traumatic event in their lives, and now
Yeah.
is faced with this Herculean task of rebuilding a single family home in California in 2026 in order to remain in their hometown. And you could give someone $10 million and say, good luck. And that process would still be incredibly fraught with dead ends, obstacles, and challenges. So, for us, anyone who's been affected, we believe is worthy of this charitable initiative. So it's been something that, in the get-go was part of our mission and something that our funders and our partners have taken up and supported too. So, from top to bottom, I mean, we want to see this entire community rebuilt and want to be able to keep every single homeowner, every single family who wants to stay in these communities. We want to provide resources to be able to keep them here.
So you expanded from yourself and your co-founder, your wife, who's lovely, to now how many employees do you have and where are you located? Because you have really expanded.
Yeah, so we're it started just the two of us. I ended up quitting my job 2 weeks after starting this initiative. So, and it was just me kind of out there on the streets, just spreading the word of kind of what this was. And as is everything in disaster recovery, in the startup nonprofit, architecture, like tornado that we are, everything is accelerated. And so our growth and our the urgency is also accelerated too. So, we went from, two people and a small team. We had a really robust team of volunteers who were passionate about this too, working with us from day one. But now we're a team of about 20 people. We have, from full-time, part-time, summer interns are, that we get from local architecture schools have been an amazing help as well. So, it's a pretty robust team now that of really intelligent, like you said, really passionate people. One of the proudest things for me and for Cynthia is of this incredible team that we put together, people we just found. It almost seemed like more than coincidence of how these people came into our lives. So it's all about sharing that kind of mission alignment and that passion and care for people and for place, which is kind of what the organization represents.
I think for people who, you and Cynthia have I know it sounds woo woo, but a very good vibe. Like energetically, if one feels that you are doing this for the right reasons at the right time. And I think and that you're mission driven and that you feel it and you see the possibilities of it too. It doesn't feel that you don't give the ick on any level. And I think that once people see that, of course they want to work with you because they want to be, part of an impact on getting people home. So I think it reflects well on you two that you're attracting that kind of talent that's so very like-minded, you
Yeah, I
know?
appreciate it, Jennifer. Well, I mean, we've learned from so many people too. And it's so, I mean, I feel like everything we've done has been very reactive and just like you have to be I'm able to talk about this because I am so passionate about it without even thinking about it, right? So
Mhm.
I feel like you just let that passion and that care kind of show. Um, and that's really clear to see from other people too. And so it's been great to establish this now community and learn about all these other communities that you've brought into our kind of ecosystem of people that have that same passion and care. And then just it's easy to kind of partner and work together from there.
It is now. I want to shift because it's called How to Disaster. It's unusual for somebody to start the idea of a nonprofit during a fire or right after, and then really have sort of the trajectory you have had, and really the attention, including a partnership with Architectural Digest. Talk to us about how on earth did you pull that off? That is really tough. And how did you make people see the vision and the innovation in the way that you have been so successful?
Yeah, I mean the it's been a really crazy journey that it's only been 16 months in the making. I mean it started kind of with a bold idea and with some courage and just some belief in what you're doing. So um you know I ended up quitting my job, 2 weeks into this, right? And just launching myself fully into this thing that I believed in. And I think the idea, like itself, was a good one, right? It spoke to people, and learning about the precedent or from Rebuild Paradise and all this plan library and pre-approved plans that have helped people in other communities. Um, it spoke to people, and then it was just making relationships. Honestly, like Architectural Digest came from local relationships that we made in February 2025, and then we connected with Architectural Digest in October 2025, and then we were in the March 2026 issue as their philanthropic partner. So it's all built on these smaller networks, these circles that you start building and start growing, and they start overlapping and then amassing into this one network of relationships, this ecosystem of people you can lean on and trust, and creates this village that we all talk about that is necessary
Hmm.
to kind of help individual families and communities recover. So, like the value of relationships, I've learned has been just so crucial and so important in this effort and really in life, obviously. But um, and then also, with such high caliber people here in LA, as you mentioned, it's
Ridiculously talented.
in
Like,
Altadena in the Palisades
I
specific,
mean,
like
yeah,
it's crazy who even like
yeah.
who your neighbors are, right? Like just the crazy things they do and the brilliant people that call this place home. So, yeah, it was really, really special. Kind of again, kind of reckless, kind of reactive, but sometimes you kind of have to be and have some courage that what you believe in is the right thing to do. And we've been so fortunate that we have so many partners and funders and other relationships and people that have shared in that mission, that belief.
I think too, one of the attitudes that really emanates from you, and one of the things that we seek out at After the Fire with the people that we choose to amplify and align ourselves with, is that you understand that it is a nature of relationships and collaborations and building those and being respectful. One thing that works against LA is the attention economy. It can be good, but can also has a downside too, which can sometimes hinder collaboration. And we just don't see that with you. We see that while you're getting a lot of attention, there doesn't have a thirst factor to it at all. It feels like you're getting it because you're really trying hard to do the right thing by your community and providing this really beautiful service. And so I thank you so much for that. As we close out this, I would like to know, do you mind answering the question, what gives you hope?
Sure. What gives me hope is really, seeing as we move forward in this journey, as this recovery process evolves, that same kind of, like I said, that same gas pedal to the floor, that same fire in people's eyes, that same passion. Things get harder. We learn more. Narratives change. Spotlight fades. Spotlight reappears. There's
Yep.
been so many peaks and valleys in this journey already, but um, what gives me hope is that like the people around us, like the people in this ecosystem that are still here, that again I met in February and June and November. These have become partners, collaborators. These have become really close friends, And so I think as long as that passion kind of is there and that we take care of each other too, and take care of our families, our community. Um, I try and be, I try to be non-confrontational in general, but also like, there is no reason to be confrontational. We're all trying to get to the same end, right? So,
Yeah.
whatever the small piece that the Foothill Catalog Foundation can be in the broader scope of recovery, I mean, we are happy to play that role and happy to enable others to play their role and succeed in ultimately helping all of us get to the same destination.
Oh, I love that. And we enjoy spotlighting you. We enjoy visiting you and your wife and Cynthia. And thank you for my print. I meant to put it behind me, but
But
I'm
yeah,
going
you
to
get
make
that in
sure
the
that we have some
background. Yeah.
B-roll footage. Yeah, I'd like that. I have a place for it right there. So thank you so much for all of your work, and I'm just looking forward to watching the years unfold and the model scale and serve other communities as you have the vision or ambition, whatever you want. Like I'm interested to see where you go and see where we can work together in the future. So thank you so much for being on How to Disaster.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jennifer. And I appreciate you and the whole After the Fire team. I can't stress enough how amazing you have been for me personally, for our organization. So thank you for having me and thank you for everything you've done.
Okay, it's our pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, hi
Hi.
Holly.
Hello.
We're both here in Malibu at the Malibu Recovery Fair. Why are you here? What are you doing?
I'm here representing Wise and Healthy Aging, which is a multi-purpose senior center in Santa Monica.
Why would they care about the Palisades in Malibu?
We have been fortunate enough to work with many fire victims who are older adults. We've been helping them for the last year, and it's been the most rewarding work. And so we want to continue supporting that community and letting them know that we have services available to them.
Yeah, the last Surgeon General said that loneliness was an epidemic. And especially for seniors, when they finally found a routine, they finally found a place, it's so hard to get them comfortable. What happens there and why would people be comfortable to come?
Right. So we meet them where they are. We have lots to offer. We have classes designed for seniors so they can do yoga and tai chi. We have arts and crafts. We have bingo, a number of lectures. We also started a wildfire support group, which is very popular. And we're offering free club membership for wildfire survivors as well.
What's the club?
The club, it's like an exercise club and a social club all rolled into one. So it's a great place for them to find their community again, because what we hear a lot is that they lived in the Palisades or they lived in Malibu, but all their friends moved away and separated to different parts of the city and maybe even moved out of state.
Right.
So this is a chance for them to kind of find a tribe.
And I remember being in line for free shoes or something on Abbot Kinney in the week after the fire, free clothes at Faraday. And there was this beautiful older couple, gray-haired guy and his beautiful Latina wife. And she thought she knew me and she bent down and said, you know what, all we wanted to do was grow old by the fire together. And now the fire took our house.
Yeah, it's this tremendous, unexpected change that they never fathomed would happen. They thought they were settled in their home for the rest of their lives. And so I think what we find is it's now 15, 16 months later, and many of them are still, if they have homes to get back to, they're still waiting to get back into them. And this process, it continues on and on. So we've been able to support them, and it's been very gratifying work to be able to help this population as they pick up the pieces.
I even met a friend, a mom from school in Palisades that was a fellow mom with me, and she said she ran a senior center and it burned down. So 60 seniors came there.
Right.
And it burned down.
And that was their community, and it's gone. And for them, they've yet to find a new one. In many cases, their spouses have become ill and maybe even passed away. So the tragedies have kind of compounded. So we've been fortunate to have programs where we were able to help people purchase things that they lost in the fire. So that was something that we were very active in, and for a very long time we had some pop-up events. And now we're continuing on with our wildfire support group. And if any wildfire survivors are interested in an adult day center type of program. If they have loved ones who have dementia, Alzheimer's,
They can come?
strokes, they can come, and we have a program where they can come for free for a certain amount of time.
Wow.
So,
And I see you have a whole wellness thing, acupuncture, breath and meditation.
absolutely.
Coping with triggers, facing the unknown, digital coaching, day trippers. I just am so impressed.
Great.
So how easy is it for someone to go and find it? What website should they look up?
Yeah, they can go to wiseandhealthyaging.org.
Wise and healthy.
Or also give our main number. Is it okay to give a phone number?
Yeah.
It's 394 9871.
Yeah.
They can ask for my extension. My name's Holly. I'm at extension 190 if they want to talk to me. And they can hopefully come in and check us out in Santa Monica. We're on 4th Street between Broadway and Colorado.
I love it. Holly, you live near Hollywood, so we'll remember you.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you for all your kind heart opening to these fire people.
My pleasure.
Hi, here we are at the Malibu Recovery Expo. It's the middle of May. Who are you and why are you guys here?
Hi, Kim. I am Sarah. I'm the Communications Director of Resilient Palisades.
Woo!
We are an environmental organization that was founded in 2019 in Pacific Palisades.
Before the fire.
Yes, exactly. And as you can imagine, now we are heavily focused on wildfire recovery. We used to focus on wildfire mitigation as one of our main focuses. So we've had to switch gears heavily over the past year, as you can imagine. And right now we have a big focus on invasive brush clearance, native habitat restoration. We're big on clean energy and electrification and connecting homeowners with incentives to help close that financial gap that a lot of people are facing.
Well, you know, the thing I love about what you guys are doing, we're LA Rising, Stories of Healing, Help and Hope. And the natural thing is to blame and to yell and blame one person or one fire hydrant or one reservoir. But what have you found about the cumulative effect of climate change that ended up in our doorstep?
Well, you know, yes, there was negligence, and yes, there's usually always human, flaws and faults involved. But the way that we see it and the way that we saw it coming was in 2023 and 2024, we had historic rainfall. There were atmospheric rivers. A warmer environment holds more moisture in the air, which means more water dumped on the environment, which means explosive plant growth, a lot of it invasive. And then, of course, the drought returned, as it always does, and it did not stop. So we had an extended fire season exacerbated by climate change. And then the perfect recipe for the worst possible storm, we had historic Santa Ana winds
80 to 100 miles an hour.
So we've got, the historic rain, the historic drought, the historic Santa Ana winds, and all of this invasive plant fuel everywhere. And then, of course, throw in some other factors. But it was the perfect storm to turn a wildfire into a conflagration, into a town-eating monster.
Town-eating monster. And here we are, we're building back, we're trying to be smart, and I was so captured by your Protect Our Park, Say No to Artificial Turf. Let's talk about why artificial turf is just stupid. Why?
Well, it's a fossil fuel product. It's made out of plastic. Even the next generation products, there's plastic in the fibers. They say that they're PFAS free now, but independent testing shows that there are, in fact, still PFAS in the blades. It traps heat.
It says children face the highest exposure through inhalation, ingestion, skin contact, and PFAs that can accumulate in the body, forever plastics, right? And heavy metals, VOCs. We have just spent tens of thousands of dollars remediating our homes to get rid of these things, and you're going to bring them in with artificial turf?
Yeah, that we're pretty mind blown by the fact that people are so concerned about decontaminating our environment, but now we will potentially blanket, our park and our baseball field with this plastic carpet, basically.
Plastic carpet. Yeah, the head of Heal the Bay, Tracy Quinn, when I interviewed her early on in the podcast, she said it should be outlawed. It's immediate carcinogens in the air. Mm-hmm. So what can people do to help get that word out? What can they do?
I mean, you need to be vocal about it. If there's a vote happening, vote about it. You can go to resilientpalisades.org/turf to learn more about how you can make a difference.
Great. Let's do it. It's so good to meet you, Sarah. Keep up
Nice
the good
to
work.
meet you
We're out
too,
here
Kim.
fighting together. We can't be
Yes.
dumb. We have to be smart and save what we have here, don't we?
Absolutely. It takes a community effort, 100%.
Okay.
And thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, you too. Keep up the good work.
Thank you too, Kim.
Chris, welcome to How to Disaster. It's good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you as well.
Yeah. I wanted to start with a little bit of a personal story just to note that when these disasters happen, there's such a huge demand on our time and attention. And there's so many people who are coming in, and part of our job is to parse out, like, where should we put our energies? Where can we be most useful? How do we serve the community in front of us? And I'm not sure if I remember if it was Chris from Napa who somebody said to me, "Hey, Jen," somebody I know for a long time, "will you talk to this guy, Chris Corbett, as a favor?" And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the call. But I didn't know
glad
a
you
lot
did.
about you. I'm so glad I did, which is the
Yeah.
fun part of the story. I was like, yeah, I have like a 3-hour drive to Paradise this day. It's pouring down rain. And I'm driving along and we have the call. And like within minutes, I thought, oh, I could talk to this guy forever.
Yeah.
I love what he's doing. I'm so glad I said yes to this favor I was doing for somebody else. And it was like, we talked for an hour and a half.
Yeah. I'm sure
did.
made that drive go a little quicker, hopefully.
So much better. Driving, not my favorite thing ever. It's a good thing I
Yeah.
don't live in Los Angeles because it would have to become that. But
Yeah.
your clarity was so impressive. Your vision was impressive. Your understanding of it. Also, I like, you'd already developed the collective idea, and you were carrying forth. So what I would like the audience to hear is everything that I heard on day one, which was a super engaging, really, really smart, really compassionate person who was determined to make a difference for his community. And also I learned about the Janes. So can you talk about your journey from day before the fire to, a month or two after? Because that's a little crazy in there.
It's funny you're asking me this question because we were just reflecting back on everything we've learned over the last year and a half since that day, and how you were, as I've gotten to know you, you've become kind of a crystal ball into what we are going to be experiencing here in Altadena, before we know we're going to experience it. So thank you for that. And thank you for your guidance through all this over the last year. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and what you're doing. So
Same.
you've been an inspiration. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
So the day before the fire, my background is architecture, and I've had my own design firm called Dreamers and Doers for the last decade or so. And I was working, if you can believe it, on a pickleball project in Tampa, outside of Tampa, Florida. And it was just wrapping up.
I can believe it.
Yes.
But wow.
Yeah. The name of this place, I don't think it ever opened. I was just doing concept work for it, called Blazing Paddles.
Oh, clever.
Yeah.
Not mad about that. Okay.
Yeah. So the day of the fire, I was evacuated. I didn't lose my home, but I lived close by. And I found out that a couple of my daughters, I have 2 daughters, and a couple of my daughters had teachers that lived in Altadena and had lost their homes. And I hadn't really thought about how I could get involved from an architectural perspective. I really just wanted to help out the people that I knew and ask them what they needed from just, a personal standpoint. Just check in with them, see how they were doing. We put together some big gift baskets for the teachers and was able to drop them off and say hi. And one of the teachers, my daughter's kindergarten teacher, who had lost his home, he said, "You're an architect. I have all these questions." He was already starting to process it. And this was probably a week after the fire. He was already starting to process it and understand it. And it turned out he had always been around architecture. His sister was an interior designer. His mother was an architect as well. So it was something on his mind. And I was like, how are you thinking about this? He just lost this beautiful set of vintage motorcycles
Oh,
in the fire. And they literally had the aluminum wheels had literally melted into pools on the driveway. And he was, telling me the story, and I was just in shock. So it really didn't hit me until probably another week later, and I followed up with him, and I was like, yeah, I have a skill set, and I have a passion for helping people. I would love to help you in any possible way. And so I reached out to another teacher that lost her home, and she was telling me about her home. We had a conversation outside the school, and she said, I had this beautiful home. It was an English cottage home. They were called the Janes Cottages. And I had never heard of these before. And she said, if you really want to understand it, we've started this group of other people that also had Jane's Cottages that want to just talk to each other. And it started out as more of a support group. And I came on there just to listen, to find out more about what a Jane's Cottage was. And in the room was an architect that was essentially presenting what the Jane's Cottage history was, who E.P. Janes was that developed these homes. And it turned out that these homes were about to turn exactly 100 years old in May last year. So the community had already formed a group about planning that 100-year anniversary, and they were going to have a block party, and they were going to, come together and celebrate. But that turned into, after the fire, into more of a support situation where they just wanted to talk about it, and they started talking about coming back and bringing Janes back, and what was so special about them. So very quickly, I got an education on a Jane's Cottage, and I got to meet this other architect, Tim. And so I followed up with Tim, and we started talking about Jane's Cottages, why they were special. But we also started talking about, okay, how do you bring a whole group of historic homes back? Because everyone's going to want to build back. They love their Janes. How can we bring it back? And that's something that's very difficult in the architectural world to say. There's historic architecture. It was built in a certain time period in a certain way. How do you be authentic to the details of that, and how do you bring that back in modern times and start to consider things that we were thinking about as far as like fire resiliency and modernization and solar panels and zone zero and all these things that we started to fold into it. So we started Altadena Collective with the hopes of bringing back the character and the qualities and the specialness that existed within the community, and bring the people back that had lost their homes. And what that turned into was this kind of ever-growing system of trying to figure out solutions for a particular group of people going through a unique experience. And I'm kind of sugarcoating it all, but essentially survivors, disaster survivors, we found out very early on, as they were going through what they're going through, the trauma that they were going through had a very unique set of parameters that we needed to address, that were outside of the typical scope of me as an architect and how I work with clients and how I design a building was very different. And rather than try to fit the survivors into that box, we decided very early on that we were going to fit our box around their problems, so that it was a new solution. And we kept on finding different problems and saying, okay, how should we address these different problems? And it began to expand and expand. And since then, we've started Collective OR, which is an owner representation nonprofit organization that helps people guide them back through the rebuilding process. We've worked with the commercial districts, and there's another nonprofit. They're called Altadena Village, that we've been volunteering for and integral in bringing the commercial side of it, because once we figured out the residential side of things, then we noticed that the people that were struggling even more were these owner occupants in the commercial corridors of Altadena that wanted to return but had even larger insurance gaps and even more complicated rebuild issues and construction costs and layers of bureaucracy that they had to deal with. So what we found was that we felt we had the expertise to help the entire community. What was the best way that we could rise up to the occasion and insert ourselves where people needed it? And what we found is by listening, people would tell us, it's a crazy idea. Yeah. It's a novel idea.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
But it's so effective. Yeah. I know. It turns out that fire survivors are grown and fire communities are grown, and they may have a lot of questions, but by listening to their questions and listening to their concerns, you actually get all the research and development that you need. And I don't know why the larger disaster community is often very reluctant to do that. They're like, no, we know all the answers. So you just sit back and we're going to, what you said exactly, we're going to fit you into our box, and we're not going to try to build the box around you according to what you've told us that you actually need. I argue that the way you're doing it is more efficient. Is it harder sometimes? Sure, because you have to deal with people's emotions and expectations and their trauma and their anger. But that does dissipate, but rebuilding a community is long. Yeah. And so why not get the best information out the front? So I want to go back for a second because I love what you said. You literally gave me goosebumps because I live for this kind of stuff, is understanding the process that you were going to be dealing with clients who are different from the clients you had previously worked with. Not all architects or home builders are willing to work with fire survivors because they cannot walk through the emotional side of it, which is absolutely required. Can you please talk to people, especially if people are listening and they've never had a disaster, or what was that process like for you? It's so important.
It was, we opened up an office last March, and we specifically wanted a storefront in the community where people could come in and sit down at a big table, and anytime they wanted to, they could come in and ask questions and have a consultation of some sort where we could pass along information. And we had people in all kind of just every emotional state. People would come in, tears in their eyes. People would come in, their eyes were glazed over with, absolute paralysis. Some people were in ecstatic joy, like they were, it was really interesting to see how people were processing the trauma of it. But they all knew that they needed to rebuild. So they had a lot of bravery and just kind of taking those first steps of saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I've never built a house before. I've never gone through a construction process. I'm going to spend more money than probably I've ever spent in my life on the reconstruction. I don't know what the next step is because the systems in place don't prepare you and don't provide the guidance that you need. So everyone was out on their own and very vulnerable and very raw, and to experience that level of emotion. I was used to working with people that were creating a project on their own because that's what they wanted to do. It was a business, it was a house, hotel, other experience. These are people that were there not out of choice. And I think that by finding ways to meet them and give them the information and guide them, then what we quickly learned is that dignity is a huge part of the recovery process. And how could we bring dignity back into that process and make it and give them the information when they were ready for it, rather than throw them a lot of information. And early on, we didn't want to send people on wild goose chases, treasure hunts to get information, here, over here, because that was another point where they would shut them down or stop them from moving forward. So we wanted to bring all the information to one place and all the expertise into one place to kind of keep them going. and give them hope.
There's so much emotional intelligence in there. And can you talk about your team of three too?
Yeah.
Like your core team and how I mean, that's a lot of emotional intelligence for one, especially a new org, but so much respect for that. Talk about it.
Yeah, I'm very lucky because I get to talk to people like you and represent something that I think is really special. So I am part of a group in Altadena Collective of two other architects, Tim Vortreed, who is a total loss survivor from Altadena, and a friend that he knew and a colleague from before the fire, Chris Driscoll. And we sat down very early on and found that we were all ethically aligned in how we wanted to approach things. So, and we had this kind of moment where we were trying to decide, should this be a nonprofit, a for-profit? We got the website, it was a .org, but does that mean we had to be a nonprofit? And ultimately, we wanted to approach this in a very nimble, flexible way. So we ended up going, as a for-profit, but we consider ourselves low bono. And what that means is essentially, because so many people are rebuilding, we felt that if you could somehow take advantage of bulk and multiple people doing one thing over and over again, then you could ultimately lower the costs. So that was one of our strategies early on with the Janes, is we found out that there were 6 floor plans within the Janes Cottage village, and we recreated those. We went, we measured, we got all the details, and we recreated those original tract home development floor plans from 100 years ago. And by doing that, we could essentially say, oh, you 6 over here, you kind of want the same floor plan. We've already started it, so you don't have to pay for a custom design. We can spread that cost across multiple owners so that we can get that floor plan. And we allowed everyone to customize it and make it their own, personalize it, make sure that it fit the like for like that they had before, and meet their requirements. So we aligned ethically around those kind of strategies of how, it wasn't about looking at the disaster as an opportunity from a business standpoint, but how to use business as an opportunity for a community-led effort. And so that, I've worked with a lot of people, and finding other people that are on your same wavelength is super important. It allows you to do things at a scale that you normally wouldn't be able to do. And then also finding people that complement your strengths and your weaknesses. So we ended up it's that 3-legged stool where we each brought something to the table, and we complemented each other rather than overlapped our skill set. And I think because of that, we've been able to do a lot that we normally wouldn't be able to do if you're working with a dysfunctional system. So we're all firing on all cylinders, which is amazing.
I love that. I can relate to that. I'm like on my team, the 4 of us, we all have very disparate skill sets. I don't want to hire more gens. Why would I want that? I already have a gen. I need people who know stuff that I don't know. Like, I've never been a city manager of Malibu before. I wasn't in public service in LA for 18 years I have many of the things. I'm not an insurance expert. So I really respect that, that approach too. I also often like to talk about that, disasters are terrible. They're awful, but they really do bring you some of the very best people you will ever meet in your life, ever.
100%. The people that are here, doing the hard work, it really says, in any sort of shared experience also, you're kind of creating these bonds that are unique and really special. But then I've just been able to meet all these people that have very amazing talents that want to use those talents to help people out and are doing it in a really innovative, kind of creative way. And, like just last night, we were out for drinks with Postfire and catching up with Patty and Io and seeing what they're planning on doing. And so we keep in close contact with other people like Foothill Catalog, Core, all the long-term recovery group at the EFC. We keep in contact with them to see what they're doing, because we all seem to be filling a void. And if we aren't talking and communicating at a very kind of like base level, then it's all just going to be talk. It's not going to be action. So we found that it's very effective to kind of get to know everybody and be like, oh, have you heard of this program? And, we've learned 10 times what we probably taught everybody else, and we've implemented that into our strategies, and it's super helpful. And it makes sure that we're not all trying to step on each other's toes or, duplicate efforts, that kind of thing.
And in a place where I love working in LA, but I think the one thing that's really tough is that there is such an attention economy that can sometimes like work for you and sometimes work against you. And I've seen it both ways for sure in Los Angeles. I do wish the media in LA might focus a little more intentionally though on what is working there and really some of the innovations that I know will help all of our other fire communities, the ones to come, but even the ones that have already occurred.
Yeah.
So I would like that. Not that they're going to hear this, but if they do, I wish they'd consider it. You did, but you have gotten good press. It isn't that. It's just that sometimes there's just a hammering all the time to the people of LA. This is wrong. You're behind.
Yeah.
And even when you're not, like the article that came out in Politico a couple of weeks ago, like you're behind the campfire, but you're not at all. And so, and I had an hour-long discussion with that reporter about why your numbers are fine, but they don't tell a story, or they don't tell the story you think it's telling. So demotivating was my point.
And Altadena, its recovery has evolved differently than other recoveries. And, I think in previous fires, there's been a major concern with developers coming in and buying lots and redeveloping them. So that was a lot of the media attention that happened kind of early on and kind of over this last year, is that, oh, some of the lots are being sold. Who are they being sold to? And what's the intention of the people that are buying these lots? But if you actually zoom out a little bit further and you compare the number of lots sold so far to other fires, it's actually much less. And it's not going to large scale developers. It's going to individuals. It's going to a kind of mom and pop people that are building a home and to sell it. And it's they're paying good prices for these lots. They're not going for less than they should. So I think that oftentimes the media focuses on certain aspects of it without putting it into a larger context of, what it really means and how does it compare to other people recovering. So I'm very proud of how Altadena has been recovering. I still think there's a ton of work that needs to be done, and they're at another stage of vulnerability in this process, where a lot of them are running out of their insurance, their ALE.
Yep.
And because of the mass tort lawsuit, then a lot of people are now waiting for the results of that, either to settle, to go to court, to give money, essentially, to rebuild. So we've noticed that a lot of construction has started. We just had one of our first homes pass final inspection.
I saw it, and you made us a collaborator, and I was like, I'm so glad, I'm so proud, just to like do whatever we can do. But that was such a big deal. Thank you. It was so great. Congratulations.
You absolutely deserve it, because you helped us very early on kind of see a path for all this. So these are just I hope you see that you planted some seeds that are now coming to fruition, and that's why I wanted to share it with you, because.
It made me. I was so happy for that family, and thank you for inviting us to actually tour the house too. Yeah. If you want to do a shout out for them, you can.
Yeah,
it's a nice story. It was. It's always an honor and a privilege to be allowed into somebody's process.
Yes,
like that.
Yeah,
so much to be proud of.
And Frank and Missy, they're awesome. They've been awesome clients. They've been our cheerleaders from day one, and so motivated to come back to the community and be the first back so that they could welcome other people as they return as well. So their build only took 7 months once they got the permit. and they moved back in this weekend. And this was only the 12th full final inspection that has passed in Altadena, which seems like very little. There's actually more like 40 or 50 that have passed some sort of final-ish inspection with notes. So it's kind of at the bottom of this kind of curve that's really ramping up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you go up there, you see it. You see homes, you see blocks and blocks of homes being built. And over the next year, it's going to kind of continue to increase, which is amazing.
It's amazing. And actually, we've been really pushing both the city and the county to have a combined dashboard. I think Deidre Lind is publishing one as of today through philanthropy, but we can show everybody what's actually in process from a graph perspective, because that's what we did in Sonoma County. And when you give people transparency and information so that they're not just measuring success by the certificate of occupancy, but instead, like, what do we have in our momentum? Like, what are we working with? What's the entire span of recovery? And we also know, too, that, at the end of year 2, when most of the ALE runs out, that is when people make their decisions. Eaton Fire actually has a lawsuit and a settlement offer. Palisades Fire does not. And that will, it will help Eaton people get home. I was actually surprised by how robust the settlement offer was, and then I remembered, because now we have this wildfire fund at the state, so they get reimbursed for a lot of that, and because they don't want these utility companies to go into bankruptcy anymore. Our fire victims trust was terrible, so if anyone's ever wondering, could it be worse, every other settlement I've ever seen is worse by far than yours. By far.
Yeah. And I think that because everyone's so close to it here, they don't know that. They don't necessarily know how other communities have recovered and don't know how to compare it. So it's often a feeling of more despair, even though they're getting good amount of money, they don't know in the context of things that it's actually a good amount.
It is, and I get why it is that they're like, this isn't going to take away that experience. I don't feel like this is going to make me whole. This is not, like, nothing is going to undo or fix what happened. Like, it just is not going to. But, like, our fire survivors got 70% of what they were promised. Imagine you were promised, 300,000, or I can't do the math on that, 1 million, and you ended up with 700,000, or 100,000, you ended up with 70,000, and you then had to pay your attorneys out of that, which charged up to 45%. And so I do think a lot of the information on the ground in the Eaton Fire that is maybe misleading is coming from the attorneys who are holding out for perhaps a little bit more of a bump, since they already, this is my theory on it. Plus, I don't have a great opinion of these attorneys after working in wildfire for 8.5 years, personally.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything, but I'm just going to say, like, some are good, a lot are not. And so it's within their interest.
What's interesting to me, though, is how few of people have entered in to the lawsuit at all. I think that the dashboard there is saying that it's maybe 1,000 out of 6,000 families. So is that normal? Is a fifth or a quarter?
You don't really have, like, everyone's they're learning. Remember, they've only been doing this for 8.5 years, or they've even looked at it. And we were lumped in with the campfire. So people didn't, that was the trust. That was your avenue. You could sue outside of that, but it just seemed almost impossible. And then a certain attorney who's very prominent in all the fires, including yours, talked our fire survivors into it and helped design the Fire Victims Trust, which he got hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, for, and they ended up with 4 years. They didn't get their first payment for 4 years, and then they had they've had another 4 years of meager payments. They actually tried to cap it at 60% and then 62%. So now even at 70%, they're still fighting all the time, and it varies. Like even the Maui settlement, which is a global settlement, is paid over 4 years, and so But the thing is, we don't give legal advice, and if somebody wants to take it, we're like, you should do that. Or if they don't want to, we're like, well, then don't, because it's your life, and you should
Yeah.
make your people. Everyone's grown; they should make their own financial decisions. But the idea that there is this other amazing settlement on the other end,
Yeah.
I'm skeptical, willing to be wrong, but never
Yeah.
seen it before. But I did just get a text message from an Altadena fire survivor who was a renter, and he and his husband were actually able to buy their first home. They did take the settlement.
Yeah.
They couldn't buy it in Altadena, and they had a lot of feelings about that and a lot
Yeah.
of tears. But they bought it in a really great place in LA, in the Hollywood
Yeah.
Hills around there. And so for them, that was the right path. Everyone has to choose their own adventure, but I want to make sure we're spending more time talking about whether actual work that the collective is doing. And so describe exactly what the services that you provide for people, and because it's evolved over a period of time, but it's a very smart model. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So essentially, we started out with the Jane's cottages, and we ended up working, I think, around 40 or 50 people that wanted to rebuild in that particular style. And so a lot of people know us in the community as the Jane's Cottage people, So that's kind of the word on the street, so to speak. But as people kind of came in, they said, well, I had a Jane's, but maybe I want a Craftsman, or a bungalow or a Spanish revival or something more modern. And as an architect, we can do all those different styles. And we took a step back and said, well, our main goal is to preserve the character and the charm of Altadena, not just Jane's Cottages. So we started working with 40 more clients, that wanted those different styles. They wanted something different from what they had before, or more unique. So we've now worked with over 80 clients. We have one finished, a couple garage repairs finished as well. Not to discount those.
Those are important. We
They
get
are,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
because some
yeah.
people lost their garages, in case people don't know, and
Yeah.
they had smoke damage maybe in their house, or they lost the back wall of a garage. Those things are really important. No shade.
And it's very, every situation is unique, and it's the fire was very unpredictable. So we've got about 15 under construction, 36 permits in hand to start construction, and we've got 40 more in the planning phase of it. So what we decided to do is all that information that we learned on these homes is we wanted to continue to help reduce that insurance gap, because we saw that the construction costs were coming in high, and then most people were underinsured by 200,000 or so. There was a sizable difference. And that insurance gap is something that we wanted to close by lowering cost of construction as much as possible. So we came up with an idea for a bulk purchasing program, which is a great idea. It's often kind of like herding cats, or it's a constantly moving target. The price of lumber one day is going to change from one day to the next. So we started a conversation with a local production builder, which is a large scale builder that has done large scale development, tract home development in Southern California, and they had really good prices on their construction. And this was a method we learned about from our studies of how other fires had recovered, specifically the Marshall Fire, and their organization that they used to help bring that back, to bring their neighborhood back. And so we always kind of knew about it, but it wasn't until this local production builder, Comstock, approached us and said, hey, we would like to work with the community. We have this skill, we have this talent. We haven't liked how other builders have come into the community. We like what you've been doing by trying to create that charm and the character of Altadena. We'd like those homes. Can we build these homes for you? And we said, maybe, let's talk about it some more. Are you a good fit for the community? And honestly, they've been fantastic, and they've been super easy to work with. So we created a program called Building Blocks. And Building Blocks is a catalog of homes We've got 4 different floor plans ranging from around 1,200 square feet up to 1,800 square feet. And each of those home plans can be elevated into different styles, like the Spanish Revival, the Jane's Cottage, and you can see some of them back here on the wall. This is the Sage that we have up here, which is a Spanish Revival. And so it's a home program that's meant to really kind of reduce that gap, but also it is very much in a culmination of all the things that we've learned on how to work with survivors as well, where we believe that it needs to be a simpler, more straightforward, dignifying process for survivors. So it's really about kind of creating a whole package for people that are struggling to come in, and we can help them through and guide them through the process into an Altadena home.
I have to say, I've actually done 3 interviews today, and all are around buildings somehow. And the first was a tennis wick from the county of Sonoma, and he said the exact same thing in so many ways. Like, how do you bring the pain points down to a bare minimum, and why that's possible? And I appreciate that so much, because a measure of success for a community is not actually the number of homes built. It's how are you getting your community home, and what will that community look like at the end of that process? And I think you're a really important voice and organization, and your ethical core and your heart and your compassion, competencies, all of that are, that you may feel the difference most days. Some days you may not feel the difference, but when you turn around and look at it, you're going to be like, I was part of that.
Yeah.
You're going to feel good about it. So I love that.
You feel great when you bring somebody back into their house and they just start crying because they've been through so much, and to see that it makes those tough days worth it for sure.
It does, and because it's, even though the measure of a community is not the homes, but the people who are actually walking through it, that is their biggest marker. Are they home? Do they have walls up? First it's like seeing their home and sifting, and then is it cleared? And then they feel weird because it's cleared, and that physical manifestation of their grief isn't there anymore. But then they need the physical manifestation of their hope in their future. So you're walking them through that really personal process, but it's being shared by literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So it's important work, and I hope that when it's hard, you never lose sight of that.
It's been amazing to see kind of the visceral reaction when people see their home design for the first time that they like. It's like, and they see it, and they begin to see a vision of hope for the future, rather than a dwelling on everything that they had lost. So being able to kind of see that and facilitate that at, whether it's like that first drawing, that first plan, up to like, getting your permits, to doing like a groundbreaking ceremony where the community comes out, and, sometimes you dress up as a pirate and you do it, because, that's the dynamic you have with your client. You go and you try to make it fun and meaningful, and that kind of next step. So that's a lot of work right there.
It is. You're one of the, we are half joking after the fire. We call ourselves hope dealers, but we want to find people like you in every community that are also dealing hope. And when people say hope isn't a strategy, I'm like, it's not a strategy on its own. But it is a strategy, and it's a daring one too. If you dare to dream, if you dare to hope, and if you do not devolve into cynicism, which is the easiest thing to do, then you are taking the more courageous path forward. So I want to just hand it to you for that. The last question I need to ask you, that I want to ask you, is what gives you hope?
Well, I think I mentioned it, but working with people and I've worked with a lot of families now, and people in the community, and to see people say that they're closer with the community than they've ever been in their life, that they're excited to return home because they have this new network that they're texting with every single day, that they're going to events and they're seeing them, and they've developed these relationships seeing that tells me, like, one, humanity, there's still resilience and there's still a lot of humanity, and the community is there. And in a time, I think, where we need that hope and humanity. And then, I know that Altadena is going to be, it's not going to be next year or the year after, but down the road, Altadena is going to be an amazing place. And I think that everyone's going to look at it and say, okay, I want my recovery to end up there, right? For any other disaster, to look at that as an example of saying, wow, that community came together and they beat the odds and they overcame a lot, and they have this beautiful community and this beautiful spirit. And I think they're already starting to show it, which it feeds me every day. It gives me a lot of hope every single day.
I love that answer, because people think it's why we get along so well from moment one, because there's a river of humanity. Like, this horrible thing happened,
Yeah.
but the thing that it does give you is these wonderful human beings, but really it's evidence of that river of human kindness and dedication to each other that's absolutely so strong, and in the worst of moments, and that you can actually count on it.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people we work with are like Tim. He's a total loss survivor, and he gets up every day to help people, even though he's going through something really difficult as well. And I've seen a lot of people do that, where it's like, I would be in the corner of the bathroom, huddled up in the fetal position, for a long period of time, but people rise up to these challenges, and it's been amazing.
And you would too. You might have a moment, you might have an hour, you might have a week where you do that, Chris, but I have a lot of faith in you, and I think you'd get up the next week and get it done for your community. So I want to thank you for spending this time with us, for all the things that you're doing. I'm looking forward to seeing how this manifests in the next community. We're always thinking about that. I think there's so many things that are being created in LA, actually, and even made best. Not better, but very, very, the creators, doers, producers, so much talent there.
It's amazing.
It's really going to help the entire space. And so I thank you for being such a beautiful voice inside of that. And thank you for being our friend and being on How to Disaster. Yeah.
Anytime. It's been a huge pleasure, and I really appreciate everything that you and your organization has been doing, and any way that we can support it. We're always here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.